So we are going to start the program, today's session of Impact Lecture. So good morning to everyone present in this online platform. I am the convener of Institution Innovation Council, S.B.Deorah College. And at the very outset, I welcome you all to the Impact Lecture Series 2022. The session 1 of the Impact Lecture has already been conducted successfully on July 29, 2022. In the today's section, there will be two lectures. First lecture will be on sustainable innovation by Manav Pratim Pathak, and the second lecture will be on startup in India, challenges and opportunities by Pranjal Konwar. So our college has been selected by the Ministry of Education's Innovation Center and AICTE for organizing this Impact Lecture Series 2022. We are very much thankful to MIC and AICTE for giving us this opportunity and also providing financial assistance for organizing this event. Now the program coordinator, Dr. Jamini Buragahai, will explain the objectives and purpose of the Impact Lectures. Okay, thank you very much. With that, we end the first lecture here. Okay, Manav Pratim, you can leave the meeting. Okay, you can stay if you want to stay, no problem. But we are going to start the second lecture at 12 noon. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
12. It was followed.
This meeting is being recorded.
It was followed by many such ventures, including Talent Crafters in 2016. He is currently the COO of IIM Kolkata Innovation Park, where he helped incubated startup to scale, get market, mentor and investor connect, and ensure that the graduate from the program with substantial development. He also guides various state government on the startup ecosystem development. So this is the introduction, whatever we got. Now I like to invite Pranjal Konwar to deliver his speech, Startup in India, Challenges and Opportunities. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Talukdar. Thank you, Mr. Das. I will just start in a minute. Let me start by sharing the screen. Please let me know if my screen is visible.
Yes, it is visible.
Okay, now before moving on to the presentation, let me start by giving you a prelude to the ecosystem and in the country and the ecosystem in India. Startup is not a new concept. We started in the US and Europe, including some parts of Asia, way back in the in the 60s, 70s, etc., with companies like Xerox, HP, Dell coming out of campuses, and subsequently, in a more formal way, establishing itself as an industry in itself. That actually happened around 95, 97, where formally VCs started, the investors who in this particular domain are called venture capitalists, started formally engaging with startups, and subsequently a lot of such initiatives also on their own started happening in India. And predominantly, there were 2 or 3 places from where startups were coming up, places like Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, Mumbai, Pune, Gurgaon, etc. Right? While that was happening, the government of India also realized that there's a huge potential in this particular sector because of the kind of growth to the economy and the employment that it can generate for the country was immense. And thereby the government decided to formally put in place a program which would promote startups in the country. And that is when Startup India, which is part of Invest India, got formed in 2015, and post which all states were asked to create their own respective startup policy. Assam started working on it in 2017, and by end of 2017 they had their policy. 18 was the year when they decided to roll out, and towards the second half of 2018 they thought that it would be ideal to get in expert from the domain to come and work as a knowledge partner for the state initiative and take it forward. And that's where IIM Calcutta Innovation Park, which is a Section 8 company or a not-for-profit company under the aegis of IIM Calcutta, came into association with the state government of Assam to handhold and support the initiative to take it forward. IIM Calcutta itself started its journey in January of 2015 at the campus at Jokha, when the company was formed, and it still operates out of the campus of IIM Calcutta. Now, since 2018, what has happened is that after the MOU, we started with the groundwork of establishing the first incubation center in Assam called the Assam Startup The Nest, which is at Ambari, which many of you would have seen or passed by while traveling through Ambari. This particular incubation center was launched by the then Chief Minister S.B.Deorah College on 20th of January 2019, and post that a lot of activities happened. A lot of outreach programs happened where our team went to districts and started engaging with youngsters in colleges, as well as youngsters who were first generation entrepreneurs connected through DICs in those particular districts. So all in all, about 28 districts were covered in the last 3 years. Over 18,000 youngsters were connected with, and the thought of doing a startup was seeded in their mind. Now, how we did that was that we just did not go there and talked about startups and entrepreneurship as an option, as an engagement, option, and an option to looking for a job. We also talked about how youngsters can become job creators rather than job seekers, and to establish the fact that it is possible, because typically in the eastern sector, in the eastern part of the country, we do not see a lot of entrepreneurs coming up from the local communities, because there hasn't been success stories or stories to look at and feel that, okay, if he has done, we can also do it. So those stories were not there, and traditionally the mindset was of a job, mostly a government job. If not a government job, then a private job. And if the first two did not happen, then only look at entrepreneurship as a fallback option. That was the prevailing mindset, not only in Assam, but across East India. And to a large extent, it is still there in pockets. So that was the challenge, was to change that mindset and, kind of onboard youngsters along with their parents, because the parent also played an important role, because they had an influence on the child. To get onboarded in this thought of entrepreneurship and startups. Now, what we did was that during our outreach program was we looked at startups who were there in our cohorts or in our incubation program, who were from those districts. If we found someone, we took them there and made them talk about their story, their journey, and their successes. If not, we looked at first generation entrepreneurs from that particular district and took him and or her and made them talk about their story, their journey, their challenges, how they win over the challenges that they faced, and how they have become successful, what success meant to them, where are they today, all of that. This was done with the idea that these people were also available for mentoring the local youngsters who could garner courage to step out of the traditional boundaries of employment engagement and get into entrepreneurship or try out entrepreneurship, and also to establish the fact that if someone who is known to them from their own district or own town, who have been able to do it. There was nothing that should stop the others from trying out. We also emphasize the fact that organizations and companies who go out for hiring people give more importance to or priority to youngsters who have done something entrepreneurial and failed, because at the end of the day, today enterprises or companies do not have too much time to train people and put, then deploy them. They need the hands and feet on the ground from day one. Hence, anyone who would have tried out entrepreneurship or a startup but have failed are people who are ready to join an organization and start delivering from day one, because they know the risk, they know how to navigate through challenges. All those things they do not have to be trained, because they have already done it in their own business, right? So the probability of a failed entrepreneur to get a job is higher than someone who has never done anything or never tried out anything. So those messages we took forward, and that helped us connect well with the youngsters. The first year when we started in 2019, the applications that we were getting for incubation were coming mostly from in and around Guwahati. But now we are happy to say that we get applications from all across the state, from Hodia to Dhamaji to Lakhimpur. We have startups incubated who are from Sibsagar, Dibrugarh, you just name it, from Kachar, from Silchar, everywhere. Just 1 second. So that has been our journey, and I will talk about few numbers. We have been able to incubate despite the COVID about close to 179 startups. Our startups have done business worth 52 crores. They have raised about 40 CR of external funding, which means that these fundings are from investors, angels, and VCs outside the government machinery. This could be investors from Bombay, Bangalore, all over the country or outside the country who would have invested in our startups. We have startups who have patentable products. There are 20 patents which are applied for, and I think about 7 patents have been granted. 4 or 7 have been granted, the others are applied for, so they will soon come to know. So a lot of work has happened. So about 1.4 lakh of employment have been generated through startups that have been incubated with us. So these are small numbers that I'm just dropping by, but to basically with the idea to give you an insight to how this small initiative can have big impact in the society, in terms of whether in terms of creating jobs or creating livelihood, or generating revenue for themselves as well as the people that they have impacted, right? So these are small takeaways which I thought I should drop by before moving into the main topic, which is the challenges and opportunities for startups in India. So now coming to challenges, some of the challenges that we have identified while working with the startups as we incubated them here, and these are some of it are national, global, and some of it are some of this could be regional as well. So one of the challenges that they face is financial resources. The availability of finance is critical for startups, it is difficult for them because startups to get loan is difficult. So because startups are about new age businesses, innovations which leads to scalability and sustainability, and that's why, many startups are ones who have created products and services which are extremely new in the market, with very limited or almost zero marketable competitive products or services. Hence, it becomes difficult for them to get loans. So they have to rely on initially on family and friends and people whom they know to get the funding to start off, and then seek out for grants through different government programs, and then subsequently they need to approach angel investors and VCs at different stages of their journey to get the money that they need for taking the business ahead, which is about scaling the business, and for that the timely infusion of money is required, or capital is required. And the next part here within financial resources, that proper cash management is also critical for the success of a startup, because sometimes what happens is that many startups at a very early stage, founded by very young people, get hugely funded. But what happens is that sometimes the founders or a team managing the startup get lured by the huge amount of money that comes as investment, and tend to use that money in areas which are not business critical, and that's where subsequently at later stage it starts impacting the business. So these are things that are challenges, as well as things which needs to be which the founders need to be mindful about. Revenue generation is the next challenge, because this is one area because of which a lot of startups fail at the early stage, because they are not able to generate enough revenue for business growth. As the operation increases, expenses will grow. With reducing revenue, the startups will be forced to concentrate on funding aspects, and that would lead to dilution of the equity that the founders hold in the company, as well as the fundamentals of the business, because as more and more stakeholders come in into the business as investors putting in money, they would have a say in the business, and subsequently because these investors come in with the idea that how can this particular startup or a business can raise next round of money and I can exit with a higher return. So hence their lookout many a times would be short term, and they would really force the founders to focus on this short term wins, because they would want to exit, and many a times such things kill the business. So the founders have to be very mindful about the investors that they get onboarded at the early stage, and also how to manage the investors. And these things can be tackled well if the startup or the business from a very early stage has a good revenue generation proposition. Then what happens is that the investors will have lesser say in how the business should be run, because the business starts becoming profitable. The next challenge is about team member. The biggest challenge, and this is one of the most important challenges, because startups are not about ideas and founders, but it is also about a team below the founders who make or break the startup, right? So getting the first lot of employees correct is very important. You need to be very particular about what kind of employees you want, what do you want to drive through the employee. Those things has to be very these are very critical things, and it has to be charted out at the beginning by the founders, because because these people who join in early have to work together to help the startup scale to the next level. There is a survey which says that 23% of the startup failed because members did not work as a team, right? So these surveys have also happened. The next challenge that we see is the supporting infrastructure. So there are a number of supporting mechanisms that play a significant role in the life cycle of startups. which could be incubators like us, the Science and Technology Park, business development centers, research parks, etc., who help in the development of the product, service of the startups, as well as scaling up of the business of the startups. Now, all of these have different aspects that they bring into the table for a startup. If it's a technology startup, the Science and Technology Park would help them in terms of product development. Business development center would provide them with different services like legal services, financial or accounting services, taxation services, etc. And the incubators would help them in scaling their business by teaching them how to run the business. So these are important things to have in the ecosystem, without which the startups would struggle at some point in time, because they would have to run from pillar to post, trying to find out who are the people who can help them with these different aspects of running a business. The next challenge that we see in the ecosystem is that availability of right mentors at the right time, right? So there will be dime a dozen mentors available in the ecosystem, but it is about having the right mentor. Like, for example, if my startup is about agri-tech, and I get a mentor who has spent his entire life working in handloom and handicraft or banking, then he may not be the right mentor. He might have views on a lot of things, he might have experience, he might have views, and he might say that I know, he might kind of give guidances, but many of those guidances or suggestion may not be time tested by the individual because of his lack of experience in that sales sector, and hence may not help, right? So at the same time, there could be someone who may not be from the same sector, but is a generalist and has worked in different organizations as a generalist in driving business. He brings in the business aspects of mentoring. So that person can be a good mentor with regards to scaling the business and taking the business to the next level. So wherein and how would this guy help is that despite the fact that he's not from the sector, but he can talk about, from a business perspective, how the business can grow, expand. If the business was geographically limited to Northeast, how can the business move beyond Northeast and be a national player and international player? These are things this kind of mentors can help. It's very important for startups to find the right mentor and get the proper guidance from the mentor at the right time. Now, also the fact that every startup needs different kind of mentoring at different point in time as they grow and build their startup and start scaling, right? So something that is required at the scaling stage may not be relevant if provided at the initial stage where you are doing a prototyping, right? So it is important to have the right mentor at the right time. So as I've also written that most startups have brilliant ideas of products, but they have little or no industry, business, and market experience to get the product to the market. They need mentors who can help them with all these aspects, because these mentors would have done that for a company that they would have worked it in the past. Next challenge is about creating awareness in the market. Startups fail due to lack of attention to limitations in the market. The environment for startup is usually more difficult than for an established firm due to the uniqueness of the product. So now, if someone wants to do create a startup restaurant, for him, the challenges are not as much as for a startup, because everyone knows a restaurant, everyone knows. He just needs to put a paper and saying that we make Moroccan, we are a Moroccan cuisine restaurant or a Punjabi cuisine restaurant, and people will know, and people will go, and people go to restaurant that they know what restaurant is. So it is very easy for such a business to establish themselves. But for a startup, creating the awareness in the market is difficult and challenging, because it is about a unique proposition solving a unique problem that people face, right? So while the problem might be known to many people, and people feel that there should be a solution, but the solution that you provide, people may not be convinced that that is the solution. So the startup need to work a lot in terms of simplifying the communication, connecting the customers and consumers, and telling them that this is the solution to the problem that you are facing, and you will benefit by using this solution, whether it's a product or actually a service. Coming to the opportunities, India is a huge country with a huge population. So any startup who finds a problem that that people are facing and come up with a solution, the entire country is your market. So the startups would have a huge market, untapped market, because of the unique solution that the startup brings in, and thereby it becomes very easy for them to scale and grow fast. Example, if I have to give you an example, look at Ola, Uber, Oyo, etc. Taxis were always there. We knew that if we needed a taxi, whom to call, where to get a taxi. But it was expensive. It was reserved for special occasions, like if I have to go to the airport, I'll use a taxi. If I have to go to Panbazar, I will use an auto or a rickshaw or a city bus, right? But with the coming of Ola, Uber, they democratized the entire process of accessing taxi, as well as making taxis available, which is about creating opportunities for people with cars to become a taxi driver, right? Thereby disrupting the market and creating a huge available pool of taxis at one side, and thereby bringing down the cost of hiring taxis, and on the other side, the availability of a huge chunk of people who were ready to use the service because of the ease of accessing taxis that was made through the app, right? So they completely disrupted the taxi usability ecosystem by bringing in this innovative model, and thereby encashing on the large population of India, which was willing to use their service. The next opportunity is change of mindset of working class. Now, what has happened is that traditional career paths are giving way to startup space, because startups provide challenging assignments, good compensation, and which attract talented people to start up. Now, I do not know whether you would have read this news item sometime back. There was a study by Shadi.com to find out, what is the highest hit for people looking for partners, or parents looking for soulmates for their children in Shadi.com. About few years back, it was doctors and engineers, but surprisingly, this time the studies, the surveys showed, or the study of the database that Shadi.com has showed that parents were looking for startup founders and startup employees as probable match for their children. So there is a huge change of mindset already happening in the country, mostly in the metros, but it is spilling over to smaller tier 2 and tier 3 cities as well, where people are now being willing to try out opportunities in the startup ecosystem, whether as a startup founder or a startup employee, and also are getting rewarded because parents are also looking for founders, co-founders, and employees of startups to be probable match for their children. This has also been, and this entire thought has also been helped further, as lot of high-profile corporate executives have started quitting their job and starting off startups. If you see Nika's founder was a high-profile financial institute. She quit and started Nika at a very late age, right after 50 years, and took it to a unicorn state. The next opportunity is that investment by big business houses. Now we have seen that many startups have been acquired or invested upon by big groups like Tata's and Reliance. Now, if you see, Big Basket, which is one of the largest grocery delivery company, is now a Tata company. So similarly, there are many others who are becoming, we are getting acquired by, traditional companies. Traditional companies have also started investing. They invest initially small amounts and let the company grow and see how the company is growing. And at subsequent point, when they feel the time is right, they tend to acquire these companies. The government has also come forward to help develop the startup ecosystem with different initiatives. The Startup India itself has different initiatives within its fold to support startups through incubation, through partners providing different services to startups. They have also they are also helping startups get a lot of benefits if they register with Startup India or DPIIT, which is the governing department for Startup India and Invest India. If a startup is registered with DPIIT, the startup does not need to pay the income tax for certain number of years. There's many such benefits. Startup India has also created a fund which they are of which the part is grant and part is equity or debt-based funding, and these are being dispersed through different incubation centers across the country. There's a Mudra Yojana. There's something called SETU, which is Self-Employment Talent Utilization Fund. There are the different e-business portals. Some startup has their own benefits that they provide to startups. MIT, which is Ministry of IT, they also have different initiatives. Startup India Seed Fund is there, which I talked about. So there, and these are some examples. Apart from this, there are many other initiatives by different departments in the government, central as well as state, which promote and help startups. Now to talk about Assam Startup, the next, I did speak about it, but before ending and taking up question answers, if you have anything, our model is, this is what is our model. What we do is that we help startups at different stages, whether early stage are ones who have prototypes. They have moved the idea into a prototype or POC or minimum viable product, and these are people whom we provide pre-incubation support, which is about taking the whatever they have created to the next level where they can test it with a select group of customers to figure out how the customer reacts to the product. Are they paying? Are they willing to pay? If they pay, how much would they pay? And thereby earning the early revenues. And then we have the next stage where people have already done that and they are now poised to go to the next level of becoming a city level player or a state level or a region level player. And that's where we handhold those kind of startups through a program wherein which we call incubation. Now, in all this, both this program, certain things are common, which are mentorship, co-working space that we provide for startups at some startup for the nest. We help them with Market Connect, which is connecting them to different agencies across the country so that they find it easy to sell their products and services. We also at a defined time frame based on the maturity of the startup and how they have progressed in the program, we introduce them to investors as well, right? So what we also do is that we realize that sitting at one place called Assam Startup Nest, we cannot impact everyone across the state. So we partner with a lot of institutes, colleges and institutes, technical institutes, education institutes, and disperse a lot of our programs through them as our partners. And this is what we call the spokes. We do a lot of deep dive contests, hackathons, etc., lecture series, courses on entrepreneurship through these institutes. We also provide, we also help these institutes start up their own incubation centers. We have done for 10 colleges in 10 different districts in Assam. So Jagiroad College, Nagaon College, Sonapur College, Lakhimpur College are some of the ones that where we have helped the colleges start their own incubation centers and provided that the initial handholding in terms of selection of startups and also incubation process. We did a capacity building, incubation management program, which is about how to run an incubation center for the for the professors who handle this incubation centers in these 10 colleges. So now they know how to run incubation center, and then they are aware of the entire process. We also connect these folks of ours or the colleges with local financial institutes or the corporates, as well as the local DICs and the chambers of commerce. At the nest, so we also have our own. We also build our own ecosystem of partners to make the program that we run wholesome and deliver to the goals that we have set for ourselves. This could be, we have shared services available for our startup, which is about providing legal, secretarial, accounting support through our vendors at a reasonable cost to the startups. We also provide, we also connect with a lot of enablers, which are the DICs, the chambers of commerce, startup funds, VCs, angels, etc. And from time to time, get them to our incubation center and connect them with our startups so that there's a meaningful discussion, dialogue, and engagement leading to funding or some kind of support that the startup receives. We also create our pool of mentors for providing mentorship to different startups on need basis. Basically, we have a process called diagnostics, through which we identify different needs of the startup and accordingly map mentors and provide the mentoring support to the startups. And I talked about the investor pool, financial institution, corporates, etc. So that's all about the presentation here today. If anyone has any questions, I can take the questions.
Thank you. So students and the faculty members, the platform is open for discussion. Sir, I have a question actually.
Yeah.
What are the process to start the incubation center under the NEST initiative? Suppose if you want to, in our college, if you want to start incubation center, what are the process under NEST we can do?
We can do this discussion offline because we'll have to take you through it's a little bit elaborate because there are two things. One is that whether you want to do, you can anyways, if you have a little space, you can start off the incubation center and we can guide you as to how to run it and at a very base level, right? But if you want to do it in a meaningful, large way so that subsequently you start getting, grants from central government, then, there are certain criteria that needs to be met in terms of the space, in terms of different activity that needs to be done, which needs to be reported. Then then it becomes a different thing, and I think that is more meaningful because from a sustainability perspective, it becomes sensible because there are some central government funds that can come to you if you do it according to the central government Startup India laid out guidelines.
Okay. Thank you. Jamini,
Yes, sir. Uh, Sir, I have a question.
Yes.
Uh, wha- yeah, you have been associated with the Startup India initiatives in Assam. So, have you found any changes in the nature of startup taking place in Assam?
Change as in?
Change in attitudes of the people.
You're trying to say that change in the attitude of people in terms of accepting startups
Sorry, sir. Let me clarify. Actually, sir, you have in one of your slides, you have talked about changes in the attitude of the working classes. So my question is related to that part of the slide. Whether you have observed any changes in the attitude of the people, whether they are taking up more startups or they are still
Yes,
dependent on.
in fact, I did talk about it initially. Also, that when we started off in 2019, most of the applications that we were getting were from in and around Guwahati. Now we get applications, not only applications, we also have startups from all across the country. We've got startups from Silchar, we've got startups from Dibrugarh, Sibsagar, all across. So which also means that the initiative that we have taken, and which is about the outreach program that we do, wherein we try to take local entrepreneurs to talk about their journey and how they made it, so that a trust gets built that entrepreneurship is not bad and it is doable. Also, the fact that if a youngster tries and fails, his probability of getting a job is higher than someone who has not tried, because he would have, while doing his entrepreneurial venture, he would have met a lot of challenges and he would have found ways to solve some of them, which is of critical importance for an employer. So these initiatives have led to change in mindset, and also the fact that what has happened is that a lot of youngsters from Assam and the region have started doing some really good, commendable startups at a national level, staying away from the Northeast. And people have started realizing that. People have started reading up. For example, Delivery, the founder of Delivery, Sahil Borua, is actually from Dibrugarh. Though he's grown up outside Assam, I do not know whether he speaks Assamese or not. But he travels to Dibrugarh. He is originally from Dibrugarh. So there are many. So this is one example that I have given. So Delivery is a huge startup. It's on its way to an IPO, right? So there are many such stories. And what happens is that the neighbors of these people, these youngsters who have origin or family in Assam, knows about the success stories, and for these neighbors or people from that locality, it is easier to tell their children to try out startup and not stop their children from trying out startup, because there is a relevant case in point which they can anchor upon and say that yes, this is not that bad, the rewards are high.
Okay.
But to make it a movement, we need more startups to come up and show more success stories emerging out of the state, which will help change the perception and the mindset of parents as well as youngsters.
Okay.
And I feel academia has a big role to play there.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yes, I request more participants to ask questions to sir.
use chat box or give reaction if you have any question.
If there is no more questions, then we can end here.
Okay, yes, sir. Thank you, Pranjal Kaur, for delivering a very informative lecture on a very important topic: startup in India, challenges and opportunities. So now I request Dipanita. Dipanita Deka. Are you there, Dipanita? Unmute yourself, Dipanita.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I request you to offer formal vote of thanks.
Thank you, sir. Very good afternoon to one and all present over there. I, Dr. Dipanita Deka, Innovation Ambassador, IIC, on behalf of the organizing committee, would like to take this opportunity to deliver the formal vote of thanks. First of all, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to our respected principal, sir, President of IIC, Dr. Thomas sir, for his constant support and guidance to organize this event. My heartfelt thanks goes to our today's MS speaker, Mr. Manas Patil Pathak sir, for his wonderful and informative lecture on sustainable innovation. I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to Mr. Pranjal Konwar sir for his informative and wonderful deliberation on startup in India challenges and opportunities. I thank both of our prominent speakers once again. Thank you, sir. I'd like to thank our convener, Dr. Guwahati Das sir, for his constant help and support to make this event successful. Also, I'd like to thank Dr. Jamini Guwahati, Dr. Sagar Singh, and Dr. Pranjal Konwar for successfully coordinating this event. Last but not the least, I would like to thank all the esteemed faculty members of our college and all the student participants of this event for making this event a successful. Once again, thank you for your patient hearing. With these few words, I conclude my vote of thanks. Thank you all. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Dipanita, for offering formal vote of thanks. So with that, we conclude the session here. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Pranjal Kaur, sir. We'll take your help in future also.
Surely, it was a pleasure connecting with all of you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to all of you. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.
Okay. Jamini,
Sir.
আমি এতিয়া এন্ড কৰো না মিটিং কি কোৱা
হয় স্যার সামৰিব পাৰো আজি